The Great Reshuffle, the Great Resignation, the Great Change-Up, whatever you want to call it, how did we get here? In this video, I'm going to explain the 4 key factors that led us to this situation, what you as a people leader can do to retain your talent in your organization. Hi, I'm Noah, head of people here at Guusto, and on this channel, we help people leaders like yourself create amazing cultures by recognizing and engaging your employees. As a people leader, the Great Reshuffle, Resignation, Change-Up, whatever you want to call it, affects you. Maybe you're having trouble hiring people, maybe you're having trouble retaining people, or maybe you're just worried about how this might affect your company in the future. So whatever the situation is, the key to navigating this situation is understanding how we got here in the first place and what you can do to create changes within your organization to help attract and retain the talent that makes you successful every day. Now, some people are trying to downplay the Great Reshuffle and say that the media is making it into too big of a thing. But that's really hard to justify when you take a look at the statistics. Between April and September of 2021, 19 million US employees switched jobs. A recent Microsoft survey of 30,000 employees worldwide showed that 41% were considering changing jobs. And a McKinsey study in September of 2021 showed that 36% of employees who changed jobs in the last year did so without a job offer in hand. Now, those are some pretty sobering statistics across many different industries across the world. Now, the Great Resignation is here to stay. So how can we, people leaders, face this new challenge? We've seen firsthand just how competitive the market here is at Guusto as we've grown our team. But I'm happy to say that we've been able to attract and retain some amazingly talented people as we grew our headcount about 100% this year and kept our turnover rate below 2%. Now, the key to this has been really focusing on our culture and figuring out why people are leaving their organizations in the first place and understanding the challenges there and creating a culture that addresses those challenges. All right, let's talk about these major factors. So factor number 1 is delayed natural churn. So natural churn is simply the natural process that happens when people leave jobs for other jobs. Now, during the pandemic, a lot of people decided to sort of shelter in place and stay in jobs that they would have otherwise left. Now, employers are seeing a lot of pent-up churn happening all at once. People who would naturally have left in the past 2 years are all now leaving their organizations currently. So what can you do about this? Well, there might not be a lot that you can do. So how do you figure out if this is what's happening? First off, you got to test the theory. So look at your numbers, look at the data, compare numbers year over year previously to the pandemic, and then see what happened during the pandemic and what's happening now. And if you see a delayed reaction to this pent-up churn, then that might be what's happening. And there might not be a lot that you can do about this. People tend to leave jobs looking to advance their career, looking for a change of scenery or whatnot. And that necessarily isn't a bad thing. But having said that, it also produces a great opportunity for you to convince these employees that they do have opportunity here, that they can grow within your organization. So what can you do to convince these employees that the grass isn't greener on the other side, that you can stay and grow within the organization? So the second major factor to the Great Reshuffle is remote work. Remote employees report being more productive and enjoying more flexibility and time to themselves. Now that kind of sounds like a win-win for everyone, doesn't it? Now the problem is, a Future Forum survey found that 75% of executives favor a return to office 3 to 5 days a week. Now, that same report found that only 34% of employees felt the same way. That's a pretty big disconnect, and a lot of those employees are starting to vote with their feet. So, what can you do? Now, the best thing to do is to create buy-in for whatever model you're going to be moving forward with, whether that's hybrid, remote, or in-office. And the best way to do that is to get feedback from your team. So the best thing you can do is engage your employees and ask them about how they feel about each of these models. And if you're going to be going back to the office, the best thing you can do is to really communicate why. Why do employees need to be in the office, whether that's 2 days, 3 days, 5 days? Why do they need to be there? Why is it so important that they have that physical, in-person interaction with their coworkers? Now, whatever your reason, it needs to be tangible and convey to employees the importance of being in the office. And you may not have complete buy-in, but at least employees will understand why it is imperative that they're in the office for the success of your organization. So the third key factor to the Great Reshuffle is the response to COVID-19 itself. This is probably the most difficult factor for companies to look at and address, but it's also incredibly important, and that as people leaders, we face up to it. The sad truth is that the pandemic either created or exacerbated a lot of more worrying culture issues at companies. First, there was the initial response to the crisis itself. Companies which were slow to close their offices or were too quick to push for a return risked making employees feel like they were being put in an unsafe situation. And that's before you consider the economic implications of COVID-19 itself. For a lot of companies, lockdowns meant uncertain futures, which meant layoffs, staffing issues, and which meant current employees were pushed harder than ever. And this all happened during an unprecedented crisis when people were worried about their health, unable to see their loved ones, and adjusting to huge changes in their lives. The whole situation has employees feeling overworked, undervalued, and unhappy. So, what can you do about it? As tough as it might be, now might be the time to have some difficult conversations about how your company managed the pandemic. Even if you feel you did all the right things, inviting some dialogue and honest feedback from your employees might reveal something different. If it does, it doesn't have to be a crisis. By reflecting on our mistakes, you can use them as a springboard to creating better working culture in the future. Look at areas where you fell short and make plans to improve, and share those plans with your employees. This might just help retain employees that feel they have been let down. So our last factor, changing attitudes to work. Out of all of these factors have arguably just been a catalyst for this much more permanent shift in people's overall attitudes. For many people, the pandemic prompted a lot of self-reflection. They began to consider what was most important in their lives and the role work should play in that. And not surprisingly, a greater desire for work-life balance and flexibility was one result. But it's about more than just that. One survey found that employers greatly overestimated the importance of transactional factors like compensation, while underestimating relational factors like sense of belonging, relationships, and how valued people feel at work. This shift in attitudes has been a long time coming, and arguably would have happened sooner or later without the pandemic happening, accelerating it. So what can you do about it? And this is where the Great Reshuffle is much more of an opportunity that your company can grab. In the past, employees have arguably been too hesitant to challenge the status quo. Now they've let you know in no uncertain terms exactly what they want from the future of work. They're demanding change, but it's change that could lead to a more empathetic, productive, and transparent relationship between employees and employers. Companies who evolve and grow and give people the kind of flexible, supportive, and nurturing environments they're looking for will come out of this with more engaged, talented teams. And those who don't will start to fall behind. Now, I realize for a lot of people leaders, a lot of what I just talked about is easier said than done. Maybe you feel like your culture or organizational processes are too ingrained or difficult to change. Maybe you don't feel like it's practical to implement more flexibility or more support to employees or whatever else you might need. Or maybe you feel like you've mostly ridden out the storm of the Great Reshuffle, and at this point, you may as well stay the course. This type of thinking is a big mistake. The Great Reshuffle shows no signs of slowing down just yet. As recently as March, a record 4.5 million people left their jobs in the US. That tops the previous high water mark in November. As time goes on, it could even have a snowball effect. As colleagues leave organizations, employees who weren't considering leaving are getting their heads turned by the opportunities out there. If you don't want that to happen, your company needs to act. So let's review. The Great Reshuffle hasn't been caused by any one major factor, but instead is really a combination of delayed natural churn, the shift to remote work, response to the pandemic, and changing attitudes towards work, all combining to create an environment where more employees than ever are leaving positions to seek better opportunities. If you want to put your company in the best position possible to move forward, you should really be taking the opportunity to persuade employees who haven't left about the growth paths that they have available to them. Seek your employees' feedback on any decisions about returning to the office, and have the difficult conversations about your pandemic response and address any areas where you may have fallen short. Work to create a more positive, supportive, inclusive, and flexible company culture moving forward. These 4 things will really help set your company up for success moving forward. On that last note, a great first step you can take towards transforming your culture is focusing on recognition. Recognizing your employees can go a long way towards creating the work environment that employees are demanding in this current climate. If you're not sure where to start, check out our Ultimate Employee Recognition Playbook, where we go through 6 simple steps you can take to build and launch a successful recognition program. Just click the link to download your copy. Hey everyone, if you found this video helpful, hit that like button as it really helps to get the video out to more people. And if you want more great culture building content, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon so you don't miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to recognize someone for a job well done today. Mucho gusto!